It's the age-old argument, Sydney or Melbourne. Coming to you live from
Sydney and
Melbourne. Well, today, Erin and I are taking you to both so that you can decide for yourself. Having both lived in these cities many moons ago, we will share what we enjoy most about each, and we hope that you love Australia as much as we do. So we're walking through Circular Quay, the metro stop. It is really cool that they have like 7 of these wharfs where these boats will pull up to, these water taxis that take you all throughout the city. But then it's connected right to this Circular Quay metro stop, which is a very central area to grab the train. So all types of multimodal public transportation in Sydney, right on the water. And we are headed to the Sydney Opera House, the iconic Sydney Opera House. You can see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. For the new year, you'll see on the news outside of New Zealand, they're like the first to celebrate the new year here in Sydney. So 2 very iconic symbols, and the crowds are commensurate. So behind us is, of course, the Sydney Opera House. They started building the Opera House in 1959. It was finished in 1973, and it ended up costing about 102 Australian dollar dues. As you can see, it was money well spent. It's amazing though, as you get closer to it, you can tell that there's actually tiles on it as opposed to like one solid structure. Definitely easy to see why this is one of the most iconic buildings in the entire world. Now the next thing you've got to do in Sydney is the Bondi to Coogee walk. It's a great way to get your steps in, as it's just under 4 miles one way, but the views are ultimately what you're coming here for. And they don't get better than your starting point, Bondi Beach.
so we're here at the world famous Bondi Beach, where many a sunseeker is laying down on the beautiful white sand. You can see that there are people just enjoying their day. Happens to be Boxing Day here in Australia. A lot of people are celebrating by laying down on the beach. You can go for a dip, and then you could also, if you're brave enough, get on the board and surf the sun away.
Safety first, sunscreen first.
Sunscreen in my part because I always forget, and then I get a nice burnt head.
In addition to the beach itself, Bondi's Icebergs pool, nestled right up against the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean, makes for some of the most scenic lap swimming in the world. The sport doesn't stop there, as there are also lawn bowling greens perched above the ocean as well, if you're looking to try your hand at this Aussie favorite. Before you get into the thick of your walk, stop in at a local cafe for a quick bite to eat. The options here are plentiful. I got the Wagyu and eggs. What'd you get?
Avocado, so avocado toast with pineapple on it, toasted, and latte.
The rest of your hike is just as stunning and offers you many more opportunities to get in the water if you choose, or you can stay dry and focus on those steps. Keeping with the fitness theme, given that Sydney is right on the coast, it makes for a really great running city as well. Australians in general are incredibly active people, so you'll fit right in if a jog is one of the ways you like to get to know a new city. You can even incorporate the steps at the Opera House into your workout.
So we've stopped back in my old stomping grounds of Waterloo. It's a kind of western part of the city, a little neighborhood close to Surrey Hills. That back there is probably the most nostalgic part of this trip for me so far. For whatever reason, I have been very obsessed with going back to not the apartment building that I used to live in, which is somewhere back there, but the grocery store that I would go to all the time. So when I was studying abroad, every week they would give us a $40 gift card to use at Kohl's to get groceries for the week, which was like a pretty legit deal. So we would use it at the Kohl's, we would pick up our groceries, but it also worked right across the street at the bottle shop. So we would get the cheapest possible bottles of boxed wine that we could find. In Australia, they would call them goon. So we would get goon boxes for like probably, I don't know, $13 at a time. And we would get like the cheapest, most disgusting, sweetest wine possible because we were 18 years old and we didn't like wine at the time. time, and so that was the easiest way for us to get very drunk on weekend nights, and we would buy one of those for the weekend and definitely probably finish it off that weekend. So yeah, this is the neighborhood that I used to live in when I was studying abroad. It's really nice to see it again after, like, I don't know, probably 12 or 13 years, but it's also pretty nostalgic.
It's hard to overstate how pleasant it is to walk around sun-drenched Sydney in the summertime. With that in mind, Erin took me to explore one of her old stomping grounds in northern Sydney, and what would end up being my favorite beach in the country. In addition to some great shopping on your way to the actual beach, Manley's perimeter is lined with these beautiful Norfolk Island pine trees, which seem very out of place here, but are very welcome. After a few great hours here frolicking and jealously admiring some surfers, we packed up, grabbed a quick chicken parm, and made our way back to the heart of the city as our time in Sydney wound down. Bright and early the next day, we made our way to Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport for our flight to my former home in this great country. Any visit to Melbourne should start at Flinders Street Station. Before cell phones, Melburnians would tell one another, "I'll meet you under the clocks," in front of this main thoroughfare connecting all of the city. So Erin shared why Sydney is so special to her, and Melbourne's so special to me because I lived here for about a year. I did a working holiday visa back in 2015 until 2016 and spent a majority of my time here in Melbourne. I never even went to Sydney. So that's why it's really fun for Erin and I to kind of show each other our respective cities. Melbourne is of course renowned for its coffee culture, which is akin to a religion here, as well as its network of efficient laneways serving up whatever your stomach desires all day long. So just about the first thing that we've done after arriving here in Melbourne is grab a meat pie and a little bit of a pesto toasty and came to Fed Square to come hang out. I was hoping that they would have the Boxing Day test match, the cricket match, up on the screen there. They did back when I lived here. We watched the Super Bowl there one year, and they'd have rugby and probably not rugby, but cricket and AFL. But they don't, so that's kind of a bummer. But gonna enjoy this meat pie right across the street from Flinders Street Station, and it's typically Melbourne day, a little overcast, nice little breeze. I'll briefly cover the sports before I turn it over to a true Melbourne expert for a proper tour of the city. Melbourne and the state of Victoria are even more sports obsessed than the rest of Australia. In addition to being the home of 9 of the 18 teams in the Australian Football League, including the grand final most years at the 100,000 capacity Melbourne Cricket Ground, or MCG. We're walking towards the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. Melbourne is also home to one of the 4 Grand Slams of tennis, the Australian Open, each January. I spent many a day at that tournament back in 2016, but it was fun to peruse the grounds just a few weeks before this year's edition as well. Melbourne does one thing better than all else, and that's their sports. Everything here within a 10-minute walk really is the site of one of the 4 Grand Slams in tennis. As I said, the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere that hosts cricket, AFL, maybe rugby sometimes. And then they have Amy Park, which is where their professional soccer teams play. And then right next door to that, they have the Collingwood training facility for the AFL team. So there's probably things that I'm even missing and leaving out, but it's just incredible if you're a sports nut like myself to come and experience all these different sports that are either new to you, if you're coming from America like me, or they're familiar, like soccer and things like that. So originally we were gonna plan to go to the match tomorrow, but they're like 85 overs into day 3 of the test. We got tickets for $35 and we're gonna head in. We're lucky enough to be here on Boxing Day, when the MCG was hosting the annual Boxing Day test match. This year was particularly exciting as Australia faced off against the most dominant team in the world of cricket, India. This 5-day test match drew nearly 400,000 fans and was a blast to be a part of. How do you like your first cricket match, Erin? They have wine, so I mean, that'll work. To me, sports are an incredibly important part of any nation's culture, and I always recommend trying to attend a local sporting event when traveling, wherever you may be. After the match, we were so excited to meet up with a good friend and an old roommate of mine when I lived in Melbourne to catch up and rediscover a city I love so much. All right, so we have met up with my buddy Desmond. He is the foremost tour guide in Melbourne. He's going to be modest and not say that about himself, but if you want to know anything about Melbourne, this is the guy to come to. So Erin and I are very fortunate to meet up with him and have him show us around the city.
Yeah, we're going to see Melbourne through a different perspective, maybe even a traveling perspective, so I'm pumped.
He set that up so well. But yeah, great to see Desmond, and we're going to have a good time.
Can't wait.
One of our first stops was the Hosier Lane and a few other laneways nearby that highlight why Melbourne is amongst the top cities in the world for street art. Hosier in particular has been designated a legal graffiti zone in the city, and artists flock to put their stamp on its canvas. From beautiful depictions of Aboriginal Australians and sports stars like Coogee and Shaq, to a whole lane dedicated to Australia's own AC/DC, or as they're called here, Akadaka.
So, you can see the pace up that came this young. He was the guy in ACDC. This is called the Australian ballot. Called the Australian ballot. Votes were like public, it was like yay or nay at town halls. And so, yeah, basically, this is the first place in the world where you can have a totally private anonymous vote. It was called the Australian ballot. And then pretty much every democracy adapted the Australian ballot. That's why they built the tower this way, so it's blue with white stripes. There used to be these really ugly buildings. My mum used to work there. It was like a building imagine a building from Soviet Russia. It's just an ugly building.
Desmond is always so generous with his knowledge, and I admire the way he speaks so glowingly about his hometown and its history. He is truly a great mate. So this is a tradition unlike any other. It's Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and after a full night's sleep, we're headed to the club. Not just any club, we're headed to Revolver Upstairs, which is an iconic Melbourne institution. It's a club that opens on, I believe it's Thursday night, and basically stays open till Saturday around noon. They close for a couple hours, and they open up at 5 o'clock on Saturday, and then they're open again until like Monday morning. So it's like a 24-hour club over the weekend, which you don't really get in many parts of anywhere in the world, but especially with the Melbourne versus Sydney comparison, you have no options like that in Sydney to just dance all night long, and that's your option.
All morning long.
Or all morning long, but that's your option to do so in Melbourne. So I been there a couple times in my life and wanted to show Erin what it's all about. See if it still holds up.
We all fan.
So after a tidy 90-minute effort inside Revs, we've taken off. Go get some breakfast or second breakfast, something like that. But Chapel Street is certainly an adventure on a Sunday morning. Now, there are very few things that I'm going to put Melbourne down for in this video. One of them, though, is the fact that you can't just tap your credit card to get into any of the public transportation options like you can in Sydney. That's so convenient. The other one is that this is Melbourne's main beach, St. Kilda. So it's kind of in a bay and not just right on the ocean like Sydney is. So while Sydney has, a handful of some of the best beaches in the world right in town there, Melbourne's kind of got St. Kilda, and this is really about it. It's still a serviceable beach and better than you'd find in a lot of cities in America still, but yeah, just not quite as scenic and as aesthetically pleasing. Sorry, Melbs. All in all, Melbourne has a much more urban core feel than Sydney does. The easiest description is that Sydney often is compared to Los Angeles, while Melbourne is compared to New York City. Given its size, and after living there for a couple years now, I've actually found Seattle to be a much more apt comparison for Melbourne. I definitely find Melbourne more walkable than Sydney, but both are great with very strong public transit as well. All right, and that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed a quick look at Sydney from Erin's perspective mostly, and of Melbourne from my perspective. We both have some extended periods of time spent in these cities, and we each have a deep love for these cities as well, so hopefully that came through. Hope you enjoyed, and please like, subscribe, all that good stuff as usual.